All right, let me start. Okay, folks. So first of all, welcome everyone to this masterclass on APIs for product managers. And the agenda of this class is to help you understand, what APIs are, and you can do it without having deep technical knowledge. And we'll also try to break down APIs in much more simpler terms, so that you can, collaborate confidently and talk APIs confidently with developers as well, right? And we'll be also trying to break down a lot of API specification documents. And once we have gone through the concepts, then we're going to do some hands-on on Postman. So yeah, let's be ready with some action as well in the end. All right. So before me starting the session, just want to understand the vibe of the session, as in on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you with APIs? Like 5 is like too comfortable, then I'm not sure you'll get most of this out of the session. But yeah, out of 1 to 5, where do you stand? All right, all right. Okay, okay, good. I think you guys, at least not starting from fresh. I think many of you have decent understanding of what APIs are. So looks like a good starting point for all of you. All right, awesome. So before, I think it's taking a little bit of extra space, but let me first cover it, right? So API is, if I just talk about the technical definition, it's an interface which helps two systems connect, right? And these systems could be one is a user-side system and another is a server-side system. So let me break down this with an infamous analogy of restaurant and waiter and kitchen. So let's say when you walk into a restaurant, you place an kind of request for ordering something, and that is something which waiter takes and gives it to the kitchen. So waiter is acting in this situation as an API, so that your request could be fulfilled, and kitchen is something which is acting as a backend which has the capability to process your request. And once kitchen has done making your food, which means your backend is done processing your request, then API goes to the kitchen and brings back your food again, right? So this is the general working of the API as it looks like. And if I have to just explain probably in terms of a technical, so let's say we use a lot of devices, we use browsers, we use mobile apps and all, right? So whatever you're seeing at the user's end, we can call it as a client side, right? So users from the client side sends the request. That request, with the help of API, goes to the servers. Servers process that request. Once the request is processed, if there's a data to be passed, then the data is being carried within the with the response, and the client receives it, right? So this is the typical request response flow in API looks like. I'm sure many of you would understand it, because it's like very basic and foundation of APIs. APIs basically are helping two systems talk and communicate, right? And this communication happens wherein a client side initiates a request and server side sends the response, right? And here I'm assuming that this is a situation wherein authentication and all those things are not coming into the picture. We're just purely dealing with open APIs, right? Awesome. Now let's move further. All right. So what APIs enable, and why is, in fact, there is a need for an API, right? So let's say if you're talking about the users, right? Your users are using your product across multiple channels, right? It could be web, it could be mobile as well, and within mobile as well, there are multiple operating systems, right? So you can build one API and it could be used across channels, right? And also from a speed point of view, it's also very critical. Why? Let's say you are building a D2C brand, right, wherein you're delivering X type of products to customer, right? And now you don't have payment services. Like, how would you collect payments from users across different locations? How would you deliver these products to the customers? Let's say you're in Delhi, you want to send some goods to Mumbai. So how would you do it, right? So if you have API access of, let's say, respective payment kind of third-party vendors or logistic service providers, right? With the APIs, you can get fastest in the market. Otherwise, it'll take you I would say years and months to build all those services on your own. In fact, if if you think from a company point of view, that it does not make sense to invest into the services which is not core of your product. And that is where integrating with these third-party vendors who specializes in specific use cases would make sense, right? It also brings you speed as well, right? And of course, you can scale it, you can use it across ecosystems as well, right? For example, if you're, let's say, working in Razorpay, right? Razorpay APIs could be used across travel, it could be used across logistics, it could be used across social media, right? Across different ecosystems, it could be used, right? So this is basically a simple definition of what APIs looks like. Now, I think moving forward, what we'll do is we'll look into a couple of product external and internal use cases so that you better understand from a product standpoint where APIs come in, right? What all they do, right? So before I move to that piece, I would want to hold on for a minute, and if anyone has a question, right? Okay, Ritvika is asking what an open API. Open API is something which is accessible to public, right? It does not have closed authentication systems. Not yes, Saurabh.
Just want hi, this is Saurabh this side. I'm a product person from Lombard.
Yeah.
So I just want to understand. So could their system work okay without an API? Say I don't want to integrate multiple platforms. I just want my client and my server to communicate. Can that happen without an API?
Yes, it can happen, Saurabh, and thanks for that question. But we would not be basically going deep dive into it. Right? So APIs are one way of communication, right? There are multiple other ways of communication. You can also rely on that for your systems and servers to act, right, or interact with each other, right? So, all right. Cool. So Ritvika, no, that is an OpenAI is, that is the company's name, right? So what Open APIs, what I meant is like these are third-party APIs and they're open to, access by the public, right? There's not, so, kind of a closed group authentication that, okay, if you want to access it, you need to have some credentials and all, right? So that's what I meant by it, right? Now let's move
So can I
forward.
say that Google Maps is something like an open API system that um, other products like Zomato, Swiggy, or XYZ can use it?
See, Google, API is a service which is accessible to, I would say, all the companies, but with controlled access, right? So it's not like if you want to just access Google Map API, you can do it, right? You have to kind of follow certain norms, right? You can access it. It is kind of made in a way that it is offering location specific services to different vendors, right? So if you have the right credentials, you can definitely access it.
Makes sense.
All right.
Thanks.
Communicate with two systems. Yes, Akka, they can be used to communicate between two systems as well. All right. Let me move forward, folks. Questions and answers will keep taking as we go along. Yes. See, yes, Amrish, all web services are a type of API, but not all APIs are web services, right? So just quick summary on your question, right? Awesome. All right. So now let's move forward. Let's take some of the scenarios wherein you will understand. Okay, where the companies are using external ecosystems APIs to function what all of these products has to offer. So let's take an example of in fact Swiggy only, right? Or you can take any product example wherein to use that product you just have to enter an OTP. I think WhatsApp could be the best example, right? So or you pick, you imagine any product, right? So what happens in the backend, like let's say you are logging to Swiggy, right? Do you think Swiggy is having a capability to send SMS? I think no, right? Swiggy must have integrated with the APIs of, let's say, Gupshup or Twilio or any other SMS providers, which is capable or which has the capability to send these OTPs, right? So OTPs via SMS, they are powered by integrating with the companies or services which is offering similar kind of use cases, right? If you're going to a different use case, right? Let's say we are going to MMT, right? I'm sure we keep on booking a lot of flights using such platforms. So what happens in case of MMT? Like how is it able to book flights, let's say of Indigo? How it is able to do it for Air Asia? How is it able to do it for Air India, right? Definitely MMT doesn't own all these flights, right? So what it does is like whenever you are giving it a specific details, like okay, I want to book flights of specific dates from this location to this location, right? So that's the request that you send within that API to all these airlines, right? So then Make My Trip calls the inventory APIs of all these airlines, and these then basically shows the response. Okay, on this date, right? These are the available flights. You can go ahead and process the request for booking if this is something which suits you, right? So APIs are also facilitating it. It's just not about, I would say, flights. It's about all the aggregation type of business models or the services which are out there, right? Another example which I've just taken, I think a couple of slides back, which was about you are opening a D2C brand and you want to courier certain kind of products to a specific location, right? Of course, you can't go about building a dedicated courier services. The best way is like to look for additional players who are already offering the similar services. So what Myntra does, let's understand Myntra's. Sorry, I was just putting my phone on silent. Yeah. So let's understand Myntra order processing flow, right? So let's say as a user, we go to Myntra, we like something, we place an order, right? And Myntra have done the processing till the level of identifying, okay, for this user, the product has to be delivered to this location. Now it identifies which warehouse is having the capability to deliver or is having the inventory available to be delivered to that user, right? Once the warehouse is identified, then Myntra as an ecosystem, okay, identifies which are the courier partners which have the capability to pick that product from warehouse and then deliver to the customer, and then they give a confirmation back. Folks, I think some of you are on unmute. Can you please go on mute? Just background noise. All right. Yeah. So once Myntra has identified, okay, this location, we are having the inventory, and from this location we can send the goods to the customers, right? Then Myntra calls Shadowfax or let's say any other courier partners, be it Porter or be it Express Bees, right? In terms of, hey, I have these goods to be delivered to this location. Can you come pick it and deliver it, right? So Myntra initiates that request and courier partner accepts it. When the request is accepted, then courier partner also gets to know about, okay, from which location to pick, which location to deliver, right? And this is how its entire flow goes on that, right? This is basically an example of an external API, right? And there could be, I would say tons of example of depending on wherever we are seeing the integration. So just to understand and ensure that you guys are able to understand the external API use case, can you all write in the chat, like what is your application of, what is your understanding of external API integrations? Can you write any one use case that you've seen apart from these three in your regular product usage? All right, let me see. Okay, how to mute chat notifications. Okay, I've done it. All right, payment via Razorpay, very interesting. KYC verification. I'm sure many of you might have, definitely try to open credit card and all, right? And there would have been a video KYC, right? So that video KYC ecosystem is not powered by banks, right? It is powered by any third-party service providers, which is having the capability to provide that entire ecosystem, right? UPI pay in any shopping app, okay. PAN and GST verification, Metro recharge, yeah. Everything around us, right, that we see right now is API focused, right? And it's delivered, and I would say no time. All right, external API can be called to the insurance companies to get the status of your application. Yes, interesting. Blinkit filtering of products, but that is an internal application, right, Mitali? Sorry, someone else written it. Muskan. Blinkit filtering of products, like that's something you're doing within the ecosystem, right? You already have the products within your ecosystem. All right, using OpenAI APIs for RAG use cases. Correct. But that is something also depends. Like you have to describe further, as in Vijay, what do you mean by? Then accordingly we can characterize. Okay, this is something you're doing within OpenAI playground, or is it something you're doing in your product, and then try to kind of reach out OpenAI APIs, right? Depends. All right. Yeah, I think we've understood credit card due settlement. Yeah, very interesting use case. All right. Now let's understand a couple of internal use cases, right? So let's say we are opening Myntra only. Let's take Myntra's example so that all of us can understand the product use case into end, right? So as a user, when we've opened the home page, right, and let's say you want to see the Nike shoes or Nike shirts, right, we go and type in the search query, right? So whenever we are typing in the search query, we are making a request. Hey, give me all those shirts which are from Nike, and I want to see it, right? So in the next page, what it does is like, it sends you all the shirts, and that is basically a request that you make, right? If you want, I can also open some of the, let me open Myntra only. I think if it function without login, let me do that, right? So let's say this is a homepage you go into, right? And now let's say you need Nike shirts. You've just given this, right? So you've basically, given this as a requirement, which I'm not sure you can see my, you can't see my, yeah, you can't see my URL right now, but within URL you'll have an endpoint, and that is something we're going to talk about as we go along, right? So yeah, you have placed a request. Hey, Myntra, can you give me all shirts which are from Nike? That's what it has done, right? Now you want to place one more request, right? Okay, out of all these options, I want to see, let's say, which one you like. Let's say I want to see this one, right? So now, once I clicked on it, I landed on this page, right? So what I've asked Myntra is, hey, I want more information about this shirt. Can you go and fetch more information, right? Wherein, of course, you would send that product ID, and then accordingly, Myntra would revert back with all the information, right? So this is, I would say, real product, application of how Myntra is going, right? Now, yeah, this is something I've already talked about. As in, from search, you're initiating certain requests, and that is getting fulfilled in the terms of product listing page. And from product listing page, which is PLP, you go to product detail page, which is PDP, right? These are some of internal application, right? A lot of times, what you also do is like, and these are the calls that you don't realize you're making, right? Because there's a lot of personalization and customizations happening at the back end. For example, the homepage that you would be seeing would be totally different than what your friends would be seeing, right? Or what your sisters would be seeing, right? And the reason for that is, like, of course, at a user level, whatever your history has been, accordingly that homepage is tailored, and the responses have been shown. So the moment you open a homepage, there's one a query sent to the backend, and accordingly the information is shown to you, right? So let's say on the homepage, there's a banner that you're seeing, right? And that banner is about latest deals, right? So you're clicking on that. So you're making a request to Myntra that, hey, show me all the products which is part of the latest deals, something like that, right? So you're basically making that request, right? So in that case, what API does is, like, API fetches all the data from the backend, which is part of the latest deals that we do. Any questions, folks, in this? Or if anyone of you wants to add any more, I would say, internal use case, happy to look into your thoughts, right? I think one more use case that we see very often is, like, whenever we log in, right? When we sign up. So whenever we are signing up, we are creating a new application, right? Whenever we are, let's say, updating certain information in the profile, we are making that API request so that we can make that change in the backend, right? Awesome. What is request response works? I think I need to work slightly on the grammar, Aditya. Some JSON or what? Also, how to make sure what should be the request and response? Okay, I would be answering that, Aditya, as we go along in the session, because that is anyway covered as we progress through the session. While I can answer the second part of the question, which is how to make sure what should be. Yeah. So that is the second part is something that you were asking, Aditya. It is already pre-configured in the API specification document that you look into, right? So APIs can't be used like, you are just setting up your backend and then you're making any changes. No, everything already pre-decided, right? Okay, what this endpoint would do when you make that request, what will happen, right? If you make a wrong request, yes, Mandeep, let's do that. I think answering all the questions in the end would also make sense. Okay, folks, coming back to the internal use case that we talked about, right? Any one of you wants to think and pick any of your favorite product and try to see that where the API application is happening. To some part, Deepa, we're going to cover it at a high level, authentication and authorization. Yes. All right, guys, let's not jump ahead into the session. We of course would have kind of dedicated scope for this, but we're going to explain you enough that you understand how everything works, right? Awesome. Vishal is saying Zepto tracking of a delivery guy, maps geolocation API call. Okay, that's just quite interesting, Vishal. Thank you. But that's more of an external call, right? Not an internal call. Like geolocation is like either Google's APIs or Map My India, all these ecosystems APIs you're going to use, right? Not internal API. Fetch user profile details, nearby attractions on Google Map. When we apply filters in the app, definitely that query parameters updates and fetches you that specific information only. Status of master data internal calls. Interesting. So you guys already know it, I believe. Looks like many of you are just doing revision, but yeah. All right, awesome. Thank you. I think let's move further. Okay, we are going to deep dive into all of these concepts in a way that you understand the functioning of an API, right? So when we are going to kind of deep dive into the Postman and all, right, we are trying to also cover how you can change all of these parameters and all, right. All right, so request and response is for any APIs to function. So let me give you again that waiter analogy, right. If you go in a restaurant, right, and you just sit there, nothing will happen, right, because you've just part of the ecosystem but haven't made any requests. Apart, let's in a similar way, let's say you're opening any homepage or any product, right. So just by opening the homepage won't happen, apart from there are some default kind of API calls are set apart from that, right. So if you don't initiate any request, nothing will happen, right. So APIs also function in that manner, right. So you have to initiate a request, you have to tell the application what you need, what you want, right. Accordingly it will fetch you that, right. So all the APIs and I would say this entire ecosystem is working in a way that you have to initiate a request, and from that request the respective response is something that you're going to get, right. Now request and response, I'm sure very clear and straightforward. Right now let's talk about the endpoint, right. So let's say you want to talk to a friend, right, and their number is, let's say, 1234, right, and you've dialed 4321, right. You'd not be able to connect with them, right, because you've dialed the wrong number, right. So if you want certain use cases or the request to fill, you have to know the exact location of it, right. If you want to talk to your friend, you need to know how you can talk to, like, can you give a WhatsApp call? For that also you need to have his number and all the details, right. So for anything to happen, knowing the exact location is very important. And recently, I think, I'm sure we all have at least been once to MACD and could very well relate to this use case, wherein, let's say in MACD, there's an ice cream counter and there's a burgers counter, right, wherein you can take fast food and all, right. So if you are going to order burger from a ice cream counter, they are going to deny it, right. They are going to say that, okay, we don't do that. Can you go to the next counter, right? Because you've gone to a wrong location, right? So if you go to a wrong location, you would not get your request fulfilled, right? That is why it is important in APIs to very clearly specify from which location you want that data, and that is something which is already specified in your API documentation that you read, or whichever, let's say you are trying to integrate with Razorpay payment gateway, right? So Razorpay is going to give you a payment gateway. Sorry, they're going to give you the API documentation, and within that documentation, all the methods, everything that API can do would be very well described. And you have to act in a similar step-by-step manner, and that is, only when you're going to access it, right? And that is why API documentations comes very, very handy, right? So I hope everyone is like clear on endpoint. Endpoint is just probably a technical term to mention it, but it's all about which location has that access, right? All right, and if you basically hit the wrong URLs or wrong locations, you get the bad request, right? All right, now let's move forward. Right now, again, to explain all this, I'll again, of course, take analogy examples, and I'll also take product examples, so that you're very well able to understand what all methods are, right? So let's say you're going to a restaurant, right? If you're going to a restaurant, if you're just sitting there, right, nothing will happen because you've not made any request, right? And methods are all about what actions that you want to take as a user, right? So if you're going to a restaurant and you're asking for a menu, right, so you're asking for information which is already exist with the restaurant, right? So so if you want to fetch any information which is already existing, you call a get method, right? So for example, in a product use case, if you want to look for shirts, right? So shirts information is already there in Myntra. If you look for flights information, it would not give you any response, or it'll give you shirts with flights as a logo on it, right? But it will not actually give you because it doesn't have the data, right? So get is a method which you call when you know that information is already there in the DB, and
I think you're breaking.
someone has put me on mute. Guys, till how long you're not able to hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Well, okay, all right. Now I'll repeat myself, right? So get is a method using which you generally fetch all the information which is existing in the database, right? And post is information when you want to create a new request, right? So post, I would say, from a restaurant example point of view, right? You're going to a restaurant, you're placing a new order. So whenever you're placing a new order, that is something can be achieved using a post method, right? And in your I would say from a product example point of view, whenever you're signing up, right? So whenever you're signing up, you are basically creating a new user in the backend. Or whenever you're placing a, let's say, a shirts order, right? That is a new request that you're giving to the system, right? So post is about creating something new in the system, and the system would act accordingly, right? And put is about making changes to the previous request. So I classify based on my way. uh, you can't access or you can't do put and delete if you don't have get or post in action, right? Basically you can't make changes to something which has not happened. So basically I call them as a primary request and the secondary request, right? So put is about making changes. For example, let's say you've given an order of burger to a restaurant, right? Now you want the aloo paratha, right? So you want to change that request. From a product standpoint, let's say in your profile data, you have updated a request of the previous location that you used to stay at, right? Now you move to a different location, so now you want to change your address, right? So if you want to change your address, that is something which can be achieved using a put method, wherein you want to replace your previous address with the new request, right? So this is what about put method. And delete is all about if you want to, let's say, delete your entire profile, or you want to delete a specific data point about the already existing data which already that product has about you as a user, right? And in case of restaurant, you can relate it with like canceling your order. Hey, I don't want burger or aloo paratha now, right? I'm going back for whatever reason, right? All right, folks, any questions till this point? And ask questions only about the topics which we have covered, because the remaining topics we might cover as we go along.
So I've posted a question on chat. So I just want to understand delete, right? So if we cancel, is it restricted to that particular request that we make, or can we also make changes,
Come
ask
again?
us changes to be made in the backend?
Vijay,
No,
can you
so
please write the question in the chat?
I've
And please,
written,
okay.
I've written, I've written, I've written.
All right, all right. All right. Okay, cool. I'll definitely answer that. Can you please explain? I'll go one by one, right? Post again, right? So, Priyangi, post is about, let's say you're going to a restaurant, right? So when you're going to a restaurant and you're placing something new, right? So when you're creating a new request, right? And that is where you have to basically use a post method. In case of product, I'll explain more from a product standpoint. Let's say you are, you've come across a new application, and within that, okay, guys, I'm getting a little distracted from the chat. I'll answer all the questions, don't worry. I'll take one question at a time, and then the remaining questions I'll take at the end if they're missed, because we have hard stop at, I think, 12:15, 12:30 as well, right? Awesome. So I'm going back to the post request, right? So when we are talking about the post request, let's say you're signing up on the platform, right? So when you're signing up on the platform, for that entire product, you are a new ecosystem, or you're a new user, right? You're a new data point, right? So for it to accept you, it has to call a post method so that your data or details could be added to the backend or the database, right? That is what a post method is, like. As an existing user, if you're creating a new order, if you're placing a new order, that is also something which can be done using post method, right? So I hope that is clear. All right. Okay, so your question is, Vijay, can delete be used to delete entries other than the request from the, if yes, this is almost like, yes, the delete method in API, can be used to delete any resource, not just the one created by the same client earlier. Only thing is like, you have to be authorized to do so, right? So basically, Vijay can't delete the details of Piangi, right? But if Vijay is admin, he might be allowed to do that, right? Awesome. Okay, folks, I hope. Okay, Ashwini, okay. Now, Ashwini, can you unmute yourself and, can you, Vijay, I'll just quickly explain what I wanted to say about your delete request. So see, whenever you're writing, when you are hitting that endpoint, right, which is carrying all the, API request and all, there's a function in the backend your service provider creates, right? And within that function, all the API queries, sorry, all that, SQL query and everything is already well defined, right? So if you send any other data, it might either reject it or it might not act on it, right? So, all right. Ashwini, may I know what is your query in the post method? So I'll again explain. You go into a restaurant, right? you're just sitting there, right? Nothing will happen, right? If you are asking for a menu, you're asking for already existing information which is there, right? And if you're placing something new, right? If you're giving an order to the restaurant so that you can get the food, right? That is something which can be configured as a post request, right? So I hope that makes sense, right? In the product standpoint, if you're signing up on a new platform, when you're signing up on a new platform, you are trying to for that platform, you're a new user, right? So for that platform to accept your details, it has to call a post method, right? If you're an existing user, right, and then you're trying to log in, right, in that case it is going to use get method because your details already exist in the backend, right? And as an existing user, if you're placing a new order, right, that is something which is a use case of a post method, right, wherein you're trying to create new request, right? If you want to access the previous order that you place, you might use get method to do it, right? Awesome, I hope that makes sense. All right. Yeah, I think Surya, there are, I think, a couple of other methods as well. We would not be covering all of it, but lastly, we're going to focus on CRUD applications. All right. Okay. Now coming back to the session, and okay, we're going to talk about headers, right? So let's say when you're placing a request to these restaurant, when you're going in a restaurant and let's say you've ordered pasta, right? And headers are like side instructions, right? You would probably ask them, hey, don't make it too spicy, right? So headers are generally defined so that your server can act well on your request, or it can understand what you actually kind of mean by those requests, and can act in a better way. It's kind of a instructions. Even if you're not giving it, it's okay. You're as long as you're following the proper parameters and all, it will definitely act on it. And the headers also would be further characterized as request headers and response headers, right? So request headers, basically when you're sending a request, you would want to specify to the system that, okay, I'm going to send the data in a JSON format, or I'm going to send a text format data, right? Or while you are sending the response as well, right? So in the response headers also, you can justify within that headers, you can mention that, okay, how at a client side you can handle that information really well, right? So this is simple application and meaning of headers. And I think from a waiter application point of view, you can simply understand when you've already placed a order, within that you are just giving them additional instructions, right? Hey, while you're preparing this order, always keep this in mind, right? That is something which will help me serve your request much better, right? So the headers are simply about that, right? And within headers, you can also talk about and mention about your authorization tokens and all, right? So we'll talk about it as we go along, right? Awesome. Now let's talk about authentication versus authorization. These are security parameters, which is very, very important, right? So let's say you've booked certain flight, right, and you've reached to the airport, right? So when you've reached to the airport, you see that there are CRPF guards there, and they first identify your authenticity, basically, or identity, right? Who are you, right? Are you an Indian citizen? Even if you're Indian citizen or a different country citizen, do you have the valid identity card, which kind of validates that, okay, this is something which has been validated by the government, right? Once the authentication is done, okay, this is the right person which is allowed to enter in this airport, right? Then there's an authorization wherein they'll then look into, okay, now it's okay, you're a right person in this ecosystem, right? But should the guards be allow you to enter the that airport, right? And the condition for that is like you have to have a flight, let's say within next 3 hours, 5 hours, and that is something which could be validated using boarding pass, right? So authentication is about identifying who are you, right? Authorization is about what are you allowed to do, right? And within airport, you're allowed to basically board the flight, and if you are, let's say, a pilot, right, they would still allow you to go because you have that valid pass wherein you're allowed to kind of go into the airport and pick things and then go and whatever job you were there, like you'll continue doing that, right? Of course, this is something which will be applicable for different type of employees and persons who are operating in airport, right? So I hope this is something which is clear. A lot of times whenever you're using, let's say, a lot of websites, right, even if you're opening product space, blog space and all, I think that is something where the authentication is not there. You can very simply access all the blogs, right? But if you're going to our personalized resume analyzer, it'll ask you to enter your details, right? So now let me show that to all of you. 1 second. Let me go to this. All right, and okay, I'm not logging in here. So I've gone to this jobs dashboard, which is something we already have, right? And let's say I want to I want to look at the job details page, wherein I can get all the information about what this role is about, what is expected. So I can do two things on the screen. One is like I can apply to this role, or you can analyze my job fit, right? So what I'll do is like, okay, before applying, I want to be sure that, okay, whether as a candidate, am I the right fit, or what are the chances of me getting the shortlisting? So let me do that, right? So when I'm doing this, it's not logged in here, right? So first, what I'll do is like, okay, let me explain it here to you. Okay, so when you're going to this page, of course, you can also access this feature from resources section as well. When you're going from a job section for this feature, you can, you'll see that your details are already auto-filled, right? So you don't have to, put effort for filling it again, right? Let me add any resume here. Let me add a Priya Singh's resume. All right. So now what it does is like, okay, it is basically before processing my request, it wants to authenticate, right? For authentication, okay, I'll go here, right? And I'll probably, authenticate myself as a user. And that once the authentication is done, then what happens? This, we have given a lot of, requests to it. Of course, we'll talk about it in the, result page in a moment, right? So when we have, given it a lot of query parameters or the inputs, which is part of the request, right? That API, is taking that information and taking it to the backend, right? So when it is taking it to the backend, and there is some system which is acting on the information, right? So for that system to act on that information, we have to pass some kind of authorization, right? Whether product space is allowed to perform that is allowed to perform that request or not, right? When that authorization is done, right, then that system is processing this request and then giving me the response back, right? So this is how the response is structured, wherein we can see, okay, Priya's resume is all well structured, right? And this is a summary of her resume, this relevance score that she got, and her strengths and all. Okay, I'm not going into explaining the feature. Okay, I think my screen got yeah. All right, so I think we were here, right? So first we have done the, okay, I'll stop my screen for a moment. First we have done the authentication. We have identified, okay, I'm the right user. I have the access to, I have the credentials to access this feature. Once that is authenticated, then I am going to make up my request body within the API, which is going to then take my request, going to take that request to a specific LLM which is acting on it. For the LLM to act on it, LLM has to identify whether product space is authorized to place that request or not, right? And of course that authorization could be done via different security encryptions and all. But here I think we are simply using Gemini API key for us to function it, right? We're going to do a lot of this in hands-on, so it'll be making much more sense, right? Awesome. Now let me go back to again sharing my screen. I hope the authentication and authorization is clear. Authorization, you might have certain queries. We'll look into it as we go along, into the hands-on as well, right? But anyone has any questions so far? Please, type in the chat. All right. Let me look in the chat. Authentication is when you enter your credentials and your credential is verified. Authorization is what you see. Authorization is like you, as a user, are you kind of allowed to perform this action, right? So, all right, GK is helping me. Okay, thank you, GK. If you are an admin, okay, you are a merchant, you'll see different screen. Yes, because you have different ecosystems or screens to act on, right? Awesome. I believe we don't have any more questions. Sutesh is asking, okay, this is answer to Fariha question above. Okay. Thank you, Vivek. Okay, Vivek is a cohort member. He has another API session, I think 2 days back, if I'm not wrong. So thanks, Vivek, for helping. Yeah, awesome. Now let's move back to the session. All right, these are the error codes. I'll quickly skim it through. So basically, folks, HTTP is kind of a protocol, and that is defined by, I think, the internet body. So if you want to exchange information over the internet, you have to follow this protocol. So HTTP basically govern that protocol, right? And under that protocol, these are some of the error codes, right? So when you're sending the request and if it's a success, right? If your server is able to act on it, it'll send you the response back, right? So universally 200 is the kind of a HTTP code to basically understand there's a success request, right? And if you're making a bad request wherein I think you have given a wrong data, right? In that cases, you would get a response in terms of the bad request, right? The server that doesn't have the enough information to act on it, right? If you basically don't have, if you're unauthorized person, we'll see that I think 401 or 404, right? Wherein we're going to mess with these APIs and try to send the wrong information and see how do they act and what kind of basically see these have been defined as error code, so it'll really help PMs or devs into faster debugging, right? But because if your API is just throwing errors, right, the errors could be of 100 types, right? So if you're not defined, okay, what type of error, you'll spend a lot of time in first categorizing, okay, what is the type of error, then you'll act on it, right? But if you have a code to define, okay, if you want to debug this, I think you first start looking into this, this line of action wherein either the you're not authenticated to perform it, or you're not authorized, or you enter the wrong parameters and all, right? So we're going to talk all about it as we go in to hands-on. Let me see if there are any more slides. So okay, folks, API documentation. So I think I've already given an example. I'll give you another example of let's say let's take an example of sending an SMS, right? So, and I'm going to, folks, hear me very, cover different alternative methods for APIs. Mansa, we're going to cover this in the cohort, right? This is the API Masterclass, right? So we might not cover it here, right? Yeah. Okay. Now coming back to that. Okay, folks, hear me very clearly, because I'm going to take a proper use case and I'm going to highlight some of the product learnings that I've had when I was dealing with APIs, right? Okay. So let's talk about an example wherein you want to send an OTP. So how it basically happens is, as a user, okay, let me create a whimsical flow. I think that will be much better for all of you to explain. Okay, folks, just allow me a couple of seconds to quickly do the sign up. All right. Okay. Okay, I'm going here. API Masterclass. All right. I'll create a board, right? So let's talk about the user flow, right? So how the user flow of receiving an OTP looks like, right? So user enters the mobile number. I'm just skipping the opening the app and all. Enters the mobile number, right? And hits. Okay, let me put it as hit as a. Okay, click on get OTP, right? This is what is happening, right? Now let's talk about what happens in the user flow. User receives the OTP. Okay, once the OTP is received, okay, I'm going to write it horizontally, I think in a same row only, because then I'll have to connect it with respective APIs as well, right? Okay, user receives the OTP and user submits it back, and okay, I would say user enters it on the screen, and then it calls like verify me, right? So this is what is happening here, right? Okay, so now what is happening when you're entering the mobile number, right? And when you're clicking on get OTP, there's a API which is getting hit, right? And that that API is of, let's say, I will call it as SMS providers, right? And let's say it is Gupshup, right? So, and there's a system, right? Your app system as well, right? Okay. So what is happening? Okay, I'm trying to explain it from a product standpoint. So there might be, I would be tweaking a little bit around the technical details. So that's okay. But understanding of it is very, very important. All right. So once you enter the mobile number, you're clicking on get OTP, right? Then that API of basically sending you OTP is something which is triggered, right? And once that is triggered and the success response is received, then as a user you receive an SMS, right? Now when that API is triggered, if you look into the further flow, user enters the OTP on the screen, right? And then clicks on verify, right? So when you are kind of again clicking it on the verify, you have to send some kind of a connected ID which is able to understand, okay, this request was initiated in the, I would say, last 10 seconds or last 5 seconds, right? And when this request is again came to verify, I have to just quickly match it with the OTP which got sent via the SMS provider, right? So this is how generally the APIs are functioning. First, API is triggered, right? When you receive the SMS, then you have to trigger I would say the verify OTP API. So let's say this could be a verify API, right? And here it could be a let's say trigger SMS API, right? Trigger SMS API, right? So yeah, and all that information that you're getting here, right? If you want to, let's say, complete that login flow, right? So Gupshup is going to send you the entire okay, I don't know why my screen. Okay, Amara, I don't know why you've shared your screen. Upasana, you here in the session? Okay. All right, folks. Once again, I'm just making some changes to the settings because it is just disturbing the flow of the session, wherein a lot of folks are just who can present specific only organizers, and all right, at least now I'll control the presentation at least. Okay, so what I was explaining, guys, whenever probably the flow that I'm trying to explain and someone is probably acting in bad spirit, right? Feel free to unmute and interrupt me so that, okay. So what I was explaining, I've created this flow wherein users are entering the mobile number, right? They're clicking on getting OTP, right? So when they clicked on getting OTP, Gupshup's trigger SMS API is kind of hit, right? So when this API is being called, right, user receives the SMS, right? So once users receive the SMS, then users are entering the details on the screen, right? So when users are entering the details on the screen, then again verify API of Gupshup is being triggered to validate, okay, this is the right user. Within which what Gupshup will do, they'll test within because the APIs are valid for a limited time window, right? So within that time frame, they're going to make that OTP request live, and they're going to check, okay, against this mobile number, was this OTP was sent or not? If this was sent, they'll again send back the response to your system. Okay, this is a valid user. Go ahead and let them in into your ecosystem, right? Second is like, let's say if you're not receiving the OTP, right, then there'll be further option of let's say resend OTP, right? So yeah, this is how API flows generally work when we talk about the onboarding login authentication, right? Plus one more thing that we have to keep in mind, in this ecosystem, all this information, right, wherein you're triggering the APIs, right? All of it is part of API documentation, right, which is Gupshup is going to share with you, right? So your product managers, technical product managers, and dev has to make sense of it in a way. Whenever they want to call that API, they have to call that API in a similar fashion only. We're going to see hands-on, I think, in that way it will be much more clearer, right? We're also going to do one hands-on wherein we're going to call some LLMs, right, wherein we're going to ask queries using Postman. So let's see how that goes on as well, right? So let me also open some documentation, right, so that I'm able to explain it better. Some API. Okay, let me ask GPT only. Okay, can you share sample API documentation for onboarding flow with verifying mobile number? Okay, Vasden. Okay. Okay. This is there. Okay, awesome. I've got it. Right now, I can explain it very clearly. All right. I think one thing I have not explained yet, which is not part of the session as well, but I'll quickly explain it here, right? So, folks, all of you are seeing my screen, right? Wherein I've opened the ChatGPT interface, right? So I've asked it to give me a sample documentation of an API, right? Okay, now what I'm going to do is, 1 second, I'm just clearing my screens, guys. Just give me 1 second. So many tabs opened. Okay, now it's much better. All right. Yeah. So let's first understand base URL, right? Anyone knows what base URL is? Anyone knows what base URL is? Domain. Okay. Yeah, that is what it is. In a technical term, like it's just like standard start of URL. That is one, makes sense. Or an endpoint reach. No, it's not exactly an complete endpoint, as in it is one of the endpoint which has all the details, right? Okay, I'll explain it. I think many of you are there. See, when we are calling certain API, right, or when we are making certain request, right, just like we talked about an endpoint, right? So we need to know where our server is hosted. So base location is the location of, in terms of internet terminology, right, is the location of where your API server is hosted, right? Within that server, you'll have all your endpoints, right? So base URL, if you know whichever endpoint you want to call or whichever information you want to access, right, you know it has to be part of the base URL. I'll explain it more from a product or a real life ecosystem standpoint so that it's much more clearer to you. Let's say, again, going back to the Myntra example, uh, let's say you ordered shirts, right? And shirts are part of warehouse one, okay? And warehouse one is something which is a big warehouse which has all the categories, right? So warehouse is something you can consider it as a base URL, right? But if you want to access only shirts from it, that is what you have to define in your endpoint. Okay, from the base URL, I want to see the shirts, right? Because if you don't define the shirts, if you just go ahead and start querying the entire database, it's going to take a lot of time in figuring out and processing and giving the information to the user, right? So I hope this is clear, right? Base URL is the I would say is the root web address of that APIs where your where it is hosted. And if you want to call a specific services, that is where you have to further define it as endpoint. So we're going to look into it, right, as we go further into this documentation. Let me zoom in a little bit, right? All right. Okay, everyone can see this, right? Request OTP. So this is the API one. Okay, for this API, this is the okay. So okay, now I think this is the best example I can explain. I think methods as well here, right? So whenever you see the APIs, right, you only see that it's starting from forward slash, right? Because this forward slash information you have to add at the end of base URL. That is which completes your endpoint, right? As I mentioned earlier, post is a method wherein you want to create a new request, right? So whenever a user is trying to get an OTP, it is trying to create a new request because there's a new OTP, right? For that, the system has to call a post method, right? And that post method has to be called at this endpoint. So whenever you're calling this endpoint, you have to also define the request body because this is an endpoint and a location, but it does not know, like, to whom to send the this SMS to, right? So now you'll see that, okay, this API helps you send an OTP to the user's mobile number for verification, right? So you've added the mobile number here, right? Now folks, one thing you have to keep in mind, APIs are something which is helping two systems talk and exchange information, right? But they definitely doesn't concern with how each of these systems are acting, right? So for example, when you're sending this API request to Gupshup, you don't need to know how Gupshup is sending that further information and is enabling that SMS request being sent to the user's phone and all. You don't need to know that, right? Similarly, when you are raising a payment creation or a payment acceptance request, you don't need to know how Razorpay is acting in the backend and is able to collect that, right? You have to just kind of bothered about, okay, whether this is something which has happened or not, right? Or whether this API is able to do this request or not, or service this request or not, right? So I believe this is clear to everyone. No queries till then. Isn't this it a landing page? All right. Yeah. Akhil, could you please paste the prompt in the chat if possible? All right, I can do that. It's a simple prompt. Yeah. Over time, I've learned to use LLMs in a lot of things, right? All right. Cool. Now let's come back to this documentation, and I'll can you open it? And okay, I think it can do that here from here. Okay, this is much better. Okay. I don't know why it's not acting. Probably leave it. Okay, come here. Okay, this is the base URL, right? So whenever you want to, initiate that request, you have to, after v1, you have to add, /auth/request or OTP, and within request body, you have to also send the mobile number of the user, right? Now, it also tells you, I think, which it has not written. I don't know why it's not opening properly. Some issue in my system. It's hanging, folks. I don't know. 1 second, folks. Let me also quickly log in as well. I think it'll act better, I believe. Okay, we have time, folks. For Postman, we're going to move past 12:30 mark as well. But yeah, open it in Canvas. It's a proper documentation, right? And I'll also tell you a little bit about error handling as well. So, okay, why it's not stopping? Okay. I don't know what is the issue, man. It's not going up. Oh, something's broken. Sorry, something's not acting. I don't know. Below sample documentation. Yeah. Okay, this is better. I think let's come back here, right? Okay. Now let's folks, just 1 second. Yeah. All right. So in base URL, we don't define anything, but for specific, we got a yes. We don't define yes. Base URL is a standard URL where your entire APIs or your ecosystem is hosted. Your server location basically. It generate the complete response. Yeah, Dikshant, I've tried to do that, but for some reason I think my system's acting a little buggy, right? Okay. Now, as a user, let's say when you're sending that request, right? You have to. Okay, it's not mentioned here. Okay. Can you also add validations if required in a request body? Okay, it's just yeah. So this is what I was talking about. So whenever you are sending the request to this this API, right? Of course, you can enter let's say 5-digit mobile number. 1 second. Sorry, folks, my cook was parallelly cooking, so I'm just requesting him to slow it down. All right. So yeah, whenever you are sending this request of getting an OTP, right? You have to send or you have to enter your details in a specific format, right? You can, of course, there's a text string, so you can literally write anything here. But if you don't write the information which is actionable, the Gupshup system is not going to be able to process it, right? So that is why in the API documentation, you also have to define validations, right? I think you also define, character strings and all those type of input you give and all. So we're not going into too technical stuff, right? But whenever a user is entering a mobile number, this is something you can make part of validation, right? Or let's say country code is something you can add by default, right? But you would stop the user to not enter text in the number field. You can not allow users to enter, let's say, numbers more than 10 digit. If it's, let's say, entering 6-digit number, don't accept it, right? Provided it's an Indian customer, right? So you have to keep in mind validations as well before initiating that request, because if the validations are tight in check and they are as per the documentation, this is something which is going to let Gupshup know that, okay, if this request is coming, it is having all the things in the right fashion, right? So validations are helpful. It'll reduce your error scenarios quite a lot, right? So when you have made that request, then you can see that, okay, this is a response Gupshup is going to give you as a system. Okay, true, OTP sent, verified successfully, right? Now the next OTP next step that you have to do is, like, you have to verify that OTP, right? So for verifying that OTP, what, of course, when you're sending that request, you have to send the mobile number of the user, and then you also have to enter the OTP which is entered by the user, right? So when you're sending it, right, and of course it has, while you're creating your UI, right, you also have to keep in mind that you're creating a UI in the way that users are not making any random inputs, right? So this is something which is being taken care as part of the validations. And once you give these details, that's the verified, there's the OTP verified. All right, so this is what looks like, simple. I think it's a very basic API documentation for everyone to understand, right? Now, how much technical you should have? Yeah, see, a lot of times you're going to act and connect with a lot of vendors to, for you to process this information, right? You don't definitely need to code APIs, right? But you need to learn and understand each and everything, how APIs work, right? What, request and responses are, what headers are, what body is, right? What parameters are, what authentication tokens are. You need to know each and everything, right? Because when you have to go in a debugging mode, you need to understand from where to pick in, right? So as a PM, understanding of everything is now going to become very, very critical, right? I think, folks, we have now covered the part wherein we are going to, where we've understood the basics of APIs. Now we'll do a little bit of hands-on. We'll get more comfortable. I would want everyone to open this URL in their browser if you've joined from the desktop, right? We're going to do a little bit of hands-on together so that you understand and the fear of getting technical could be gone to a certain extent, right? All right. MCP concept. Oh, Karthik, this is way out of the session, right? We have to be part of the session. You can, I'll drop my number. You can ask this in a separate forum. All right. Okay, cool. Now, everyone opened, give me quick thumbs up if everyone opened postman.com and you have signed up as well. We're going to do a little bit of a working session, and yeah, let's do it that way. That will be much better. And I'm going to poke API. I'm going to use. All right. Guys, please write in the chat if you have opened postman.com and you have also signed up. It's very simple. Earlier I think it was working on a web agent. Now I think it's purely functional. Let's say I am acting as a product manager. I'm doing the sign up along with you so that you understand how to go about it, right? So I'm a new user. Postman also must be sending a post request to create me as a new user in the ecosystem, right? So that's how it works. Okay, cool. Now I'm sure everyone must have landed to this page, right? I'll quickly explain. Collections are a feature which is provided by Postman, wherein you can create different folders. So within that specific folder, you can group a similar type of request that you want to kind of phrase and all. So we're going to create a collection, which is, I think we're going to name it as, I think how to name it. Okay, let me rename it. All right, API Masterclass. All right. Okay, we're going to do that. Yeah. Now, okay, everyone's here. Give me a quick thumbs up in the chat if everyone has reached to this stage. All right, because we're going to do it together, folks. So need some confirmation from your end. All right. 2-3 people have done it. Okay, Suresh has sent the screenshot. But guys, please do it. Yeah. I think if we'll do it together, it'll make much more sense, and you can take, because guys, see, this is the foundation session about APIs, right? APIs has a lot to cover. There are different type of APIs, and in fact, before even understanding APIs, you all should also understand what used to happen before APIs came into the ecosystem, right? And I think roughly there are majorly 3 type of APIs: SOAP, REST, and GraphQL. Yeah, SOAP is something, yeah. To old version, still being used in legacy systems and bankings, but it's relatively much more secure. The type of APIs that we're going to use now is REST APIs, right? So as in for cohort members like who are part of the PM fellowship, we are going to have a much more detailed session. We're going to cover that as well there, so don't worry on it. But for everyone to you first need to get comfortable with APIs, and that's what this no, Mansi, you just create sample blank connection, no template, nothing required. Don't get confused. You click here, right? Don't create anything. Just click on blank collection. That's it. I'm going to do everything from scratch. Curl is, yeah, a good concept. We're going to also act on curl as well. I don't know who analytics is. It's a good name, by the way. Am I supposed to create a workspace? No, you're not supposed to create anything. You just land onto this page, right? I think by default, some workspace would be created, right? If you don't have it, create one. I'm sure there must be at least one workspace for you to act on. And once you land onto this page, then you go here. You can create a collection. If you don't want to create a collection, that's okay. It'll be auto-created, right? All right. Now I think it's enough setting up time, right? Now I would want everyone to open this URL. When you go, this is where we're going to access open APIs. I'm sure everyone is able to see the screen, right? So I'm sure we've talked about this is a base URL which is grayed out, right? And there's an endpoint, right? So what we're going to do is like, okay, so this is the base URL wherein everything is hosted, right? And in this location, we're going to talk about Pokemon. Pokemon is like one part of the endpoint, right? And within Pokemon, let's say we want to have or get all the information about Ditto, right? So what I'll simply do is I'll copy this endpoint, right? And since this is kind of open source, right? So it doesn't require any authentication and all for learning purpose, right? So I'll go back to my Postman. I'll go to new and I'll create, or in fact I can go here and click HTTP request, and I can also click here and add a new request, right? So when I'm adding a new request, I'll say that okay, Poke API, just give any name, right? So what I'm trying to do here right now, I'm trying to get an information from an already existing database, right? So that is why I don't want to change the method, right? There are multiple methods, right? We're going to talk about guest, post, I think, and delete and put as well, right? All right. Now, so what I've done is like I have just simply entered this endpoint and click on send. I'm also going to type this endpoint in the chat so that you all can easily access it and go to Postman and enter it and see. So what it has done is like headers is by default, it has taken, I think it's a system headers, which Postman has defined, right? All right, we don't have to concern ourselves right now about it. It'll get too complicated. There is no authorization right now, and there's no body as such, right? And there are no parameters specifically you want to give to this, right? Okay, so now it has given the request in JSON format, right? And of course JSON is like what French for Indians at least, right? So what you can do is like you can click on preview. So when you click on preview, it clicks everything in product manager's understandable format. It converts everything in a table format, right? So you can see that. Okay, so when you wanted information about this Ditto Pokemon, right? So it told you, right, what all abilities it has, right? It has whatever ability is hidden and all, whatever it is written here, right? And it has also given you the, I think, audio files, right? As in how this Pokemon Ditto cries as well, right? So you'll see that a lot of information is already here, right? Now I'll go again to this, and let's say I want to talk about the abilities, right? So now I'll go back and take the ability endpoint. I'll add this endpoint here, and I'll send this request here. Again, it by default came in a preview format. Visualize this. I think Postman is building their AI based assistant, which is postbot, right? It's not that great yet. It's work in progress, but preview is good, wherein the entire JSON it converts into table format, right? So we wanted to know more about the ability battle armor, right? So when we wanted to know about it, I think first we'll get the response in the JSON format, which is good for developers and even for engineers as well. It's not that difficult to understand. It's just like we just have to get comfortable with it, right? For the time being, I think we're good in operating with tables. So let's talk about tables only. So yeah, so what battle armor does, like we basically generally doesn't concern about the responses, like because we don't know what this actually does. We're just trying to see that okay, how this API is working end to end, right? Now let's try to get a little bit technical, wherein I'm going to act on this endpoint. Okay, so I hope it worked. Yeah, audio lagged. I'm not sure. I think whoever's having it, you might have to call Sunil Mittal or Amaniji. I think they can help with it. My internet is working totally fine. Battle armor endpoint I can share, sure. It has this. You can click here. These are endpoints it has given, right? They can also create. Yeah, I think someone already shared. Thanks. Yeah. All right. Cool. Now we're going to act on this endpoint, which I'm again pasting. All right. Now again, I'll go to Postman and I'll click here. Okay, now you can see that in this. Okay, I don't know why this has came in. I'll click here again. Okay, so anything before the question mark is the endpoint in the URL. Whichever URLs you'll see that, right? Before the endpoint, it is, sorry, before the question mark, it is the endpoint, right? After the question mark, all these are the parameters, the query parameters that you give, and if you give these parameters, your specific API is acting accordingly, right? And it is basically now acting based on a more refined instructions that you're giving. All right. So now let's see what all this means, right? Right now, limit is okay. Let me give a product example, right? You all might have seen. I think let's talk about product space job board only, so that you'll be able to understand the application of it. Let's say you go here in the job board, right? So you see that, right? It has only limited information on this page. I think how many requests it might have received? Three. I think four it is, right? 12 requests, right? So for a better performance in one page, you don't want to share all the information, right? That is why you create pagination and all, right? So for that, in the landing page, you just want to create, I would say, one request, right? Which would have, let's say, 10 fields, 12 fields, right? But if the user wants to go deeper, right, they would click on the second page. When when they're clicking on the second page, the next 12 details are coming. So with this API function, we're going to see that how that works, right? So now go back again to this. Okay, now we have given, I think, 1 lakh ka limit, like, which means like, our system is not something which can accept anything beyond 1 lakh, right? But when we received the response, we could see that, okay, the total number of queries or the response parameters are 1300 only, right? Now what we'll do is, like, we'll take only 100. We can also change it from here. Accordingly, it'll get auto changed in this your endpoint as well. Yeah. Okay, folks, just give me 1 second. Yeah. I think I've ordered food and my phone was on silent, and I've got 32 calls. Sorry, guys. Just give me 1 second. I have to definitely call it. Guys, just give me 1 minute, please. It's very important for my breakfast. In the meantime, you guys go ahead, play around it, see what all table, what all information table is consisting and all. Okay, it's not taking my call as well now. From an unregistered number, please enter your 10-digit. Yeah, all right, folks. Looks like I've lost my food. Yeah, we'll act on it later. So, all right, cool. Where were we? Yeah, so we're going to understand this limit and offset concept so that you're able to understand how this pagination works, right? So now let's go to Postman. I'm again typing this. I'm sure everyone has that URL. So I'll take questions in the end, folks. I think that'll be better. Okay, because we have a lot of things to cover. All right, cool. So okay, now what I've done is like we know that okay how much max count is, but let's say in one page, in one API call, I can only accept 10 responses. I don't want to accept more than 10 responses, right? So what I'll do is I'll click here. Oh, it's not working. Okay, folks, for some reason it's not working. Acha, count is the message that it is giving here. Let me, okay, yeah, count. That's what I got confused. Okay, so you can see now, right? Now it has given only 10 results, right? Now if I will add 25 here, right? Now it'll give me 25 results. All right. So this is what limit does, right? It defines like to what extent you want the data or your system is allowed to do the data. There could be different parameters like the user experience and all. Accordingly, you want to do that. Like now, let's do one thing. Let's take 12 results to understand offset, right? Now we've gotten 12 results, right? Let's look into these results, right? I think Bulbasaur and all this. Let's take, I think, 22 results, I would say that'll be better, right? Now, let's assume that in one page, we are taking 20 information, right? We can accept 20 information, right? But here in this slide, we've taken, okay. Now what we're going to do is like, and look at last two responses, right? Spiero and Fiero, right? Okay. Now what we're going to do is like, we're going to offset it by 20. And let's look at what the response comes now, right? So since the limit is 22, as long as we hit the we go to the last leg wherein the response can't be more than 22, right? As long as you have enough data, you'll keep on getting in every request 22 responses. Now, since we've offset it by 20, now you'll see that you would not receive first 20 responses because you offset it by it, right? That is what this is something which happens when you are click on page 2. When you're clicking on page 2, you don't want in that request which you're making now again that previous 10 responses to come, right? It wants to see the next 10 responses, right? So this is what the offset means, right? So generally how it happens, like if you on one page, if you're seeing I showed you this 22 and 2 so that you can understand, okay, these two were the last two values of the previous request that we made, right? Generally, let's say if you're getting 12, let's say on product space job board, right? So yeah, so you're getting 12 results, right? So every time when you're requesting it, you'll see, okay, you have to basically make the changes as well, right? Now you've offset it by 12. If you're on third page, you would add some kind of a multiplication accordingly. If you want to go on third page, I don't know if this multiplication like this works or not, but yeah, you have to do it like this, right? Now you again got a response which is different than the vcadu and whatever it was, right? So all right, folks, so this is basic about as in how these APIs and everything is acting. This is like there's no authorization here because it's an open source API, anyone can accept it, right? We don't have anything in the body because we just want to fetch the information. We don't want to update any information in the backend, right? Now we'll do one more exercise on different URL or different open source ecosystem, so that I'm sharing you another so that you're not able to locate under. I'm not sure. I think it's as simple as clicking here and clicking preview, right? All right. So cool. This is how you can simply see it, right? You might have to scroll it down slightly. All right. Now coming back to what like we want to I hope everyone received this documentation. This another API docs. Please open it. I've shared the link in the chat. So with that, it's okay. I think there must be some error you might be facing. So you might not be able to look into it, right? So see, what we have done so far is like we have acted on endpoint, and it already has the parameters and everything for us to act on, right? Now we're going to see what curl is like. We're going to act on the curl. So if you have the curl, basically curl is something which has all the information for your request to act on, or for your request to work on, as we're going to see. So this is, I'm sure everyone must have landed to this page, right? And if you click here, like this is like if you want random facts about, okay, if you want random facts about cats, you can access this API, right? So what I'll do is like I'll quickly try it out. I'll give maximum length of, let's say, 15, and I'll click here, right? Now, okay, I'm not, of course, it is taking requests from here, showing everything, but we're going to use Postman. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go to this right now. Folks, I'm sure everyone must have copied curl, right? Give a thumbs up, please, in the chat. It's basically, command line tool, which used to make API requests directly from your command terminal and all. But I think if you click on Postman, click on import instead of new, you can just copy paste your curl. It'll come like that. And if you want to, I just want to put it in API Masterclass collection. I'll just put it here, right? Max length is something, a parameter. I'll just import into collections, right? So now it's a new full, I think, request has been created here, right? So if you look at this, just from the curl, let's quickly look into the curl. We'll see that curl already has this as an endpoint. It has already, and these are, I think, terminologies or a structure that it used to communicate, right? And H is responding to headers, right? So headers are something which is telling the server more information about this request, right? So that servers could be better prepared, or they could act well, right? So if you look at this further, so in the request we are already telling the server, okay, the response is something which is going to come in a JSON format, right? And the authorization token is something we've already given here, right? Now let's go back to the same Postman, right? So what I'll do is like I'll click here, and you'll see that no response has come in, right? Why no response has come in? I don't know. Let's say that yeah, probably there was no cat fact with less than 15 or equal to characters, right? So the moment I've added the moment I've added this information, it is now then given me, let's say I want to have 300 length, so it has given me. Of course it'll give anything up to, because it's a max length, and accordingly you might have created your function while you were creating these APIs in the backend, right? So yeah, so this is what it looks like. And if you look into the authorization is not okay. It's basically part of the, so okay, you can set up separate authorization as part of your parameters as well as part of your headers as well, right? So you have that flexibility, and that flexibility is something you can define in your documentation. So whenever anyone is trying to hit your APIs, they can accordingly put authorization in respective field where it was supposed to put. Because if you put in a different field, for the other system to act on, it's basically the detail is not there. All right, now what we can do, let me quickly check. Now we'll go to facts, and let me see if there's anything. Okay, max length is okay. It's not allowing me to act. Okay, now I'll add something. Let's say 100, because I don't know what this is. I'll say 100. I'll try to put. Okay, now it has given me another curl, right? So I'll. Okay, I don't know what this is, but I'll quickly go and copy this. I'll go to Postman. I'll click on import, right? You can see that, okay, my entire curl. And these are basically header symbols, telling the servers, okay, be ready to accept the details in JSON format. And this is a token, right, which is helping you authorize whether the request is coming from the right user or not. Okay, so now let's import this into a collection, and let's run this request. Let's see what comes in. Of course, yeah, JSON, right? French. So go to preview. right? You have asked for 100 data, right? So max limit is 100, right? So you have all the 100 facts about the cats, right? So I hope this is okay for everyone to understand. Of course, there are a lot of things here, right? These are environments at a technical level or in a company level. You want to create a prod environment, test environment, QA, UAT, right? All of it you can create and configure here, right? So and here it's console as well, right? So all the requests that you've made, right? You can see all of them listed here, and it is also telling, okay, all the success codes here as well, and how much time it took the request to fulfill. If you are, let's say, making a next request, you can see that it'll get listed in the console with the limit 10. It has come in, right? And you can also see the details of that request, right? It is telling about the request headers, right? It is talking about the cookies, cache, and all, and it is then talking about the response headers, right? All these things, right? Yeah, cool. So this is now we're going to act. I think we're going to do one more final exercise before we close the session. All right. So I hope that is okay for everyone. We're going to act on LLMs, right? Yeah, we're going to yeah. Let's see. Let's make that try and let's see how that works. All right. All right. Now let me. I was doing. All right. This is something I can tell you how to do it, but this is going to. Okay, everyone open aistudio.google.com. I'm entering the link in the chat. aistudio.google.com. In fact, I'll share my screen. I'll do it. Try to do it fresh from here. Okay, I think on this account it's not set up, so it opens here. Okay, now once you go here, right, you have to click on Get API Key, right, and then give all the consent, right. You click on Accept, right, and it has not created any API key so far, right. So what you have to do is like you have to create an API key. Okay, create API key in new project. So it's generating an API key now. Okay, this is something I'll copy it probably later, right? So what we have to do is like, again, we'll go back to curl, right? And this is the endpoint and everything. We've anyway understood that, right? And we'll create a new request, right? And okay, instead of from here, I'll create it from here. So I'm able to name it Gemini trial. All right. So okay, I can't add it here. I have to click on import, add the curl here, right? And it'll get added here. Okay. Now you'll see that this is the endpoint, right? And if you look into the body, so what this endpoint is going to do is like we're going to give we're going to ask it to do something for us, right? We're going to ask it to explain how API works, right? So instead of API, sorry, AI, I'm going to make it API, how API works, right? So this is a body, right? We wanted to act on this body and give us the response back, right? If you look into the parameters, you'll see that your API key is placed here. And let's see if I send this request now. Oh, 400 bad request, right? Because I'm not authorized to do it, right? Because I literally have to add my API key here, but I have not added my API key. I have just added random text here, right? So I have to add this. So that's why the error was thrown. All right. And if I would, let's say, okay, let me first get that API key, and I'll do what? I'll click on here. I'll copy it. I'll go to Postman. I'll go to parameters. I'll type the API key here. All right. Now, if I'll try to send this request, okay, I'm looking for 200 here somewhere. Let's see. I was taking time because LLM is now acting on, it's giving, bringing all the information for you, right? 200, okay, it's a success response, right? So you can see all the information in JSON, but yes, it's again French. So we go to preview, right? And as a metadata, we can read the text information, right? So okay, let's break down API, how an API works. Think of it as a waiter in the restaurant, communication between software at its heart, whatever the response it has created has given you, right? So this is how you're going to make it work, right? Now let's see if we see parts to part. Let's say what it does. I haven't tried that. Yeah, it's a bad request, right? Because as per the documentation, right, there is no parameters as part or object which exist in the backend. So that's why it would not give me a response, right? It's a bad request, right? for this to act on it, even if I say contents to, okay, this is a template issue. Now, this is also, I think, something it'll call as a bad request, right? But if we call it as contents, right? And let's say if I'm entering the product space dot end, let's say what it gives. Yeah, it'll work because now, everything is around the information. I don't have enough information to do that. I am a large language model. Basically, it is not allowed to read URLs right now. So cool. But yeah, I hope you understand, folks. So this was a bit of a hands-on for you to get comfortable into how the working of an APIs. Folks, now we'll take a couple of questions anyone has, and quick update about the program, wherein of course you've learned a lot of things now at a surface level, right? But in our PM fellowship program, we're going to deep dive into a lot more concepts, and I've shared the details of the program. If anyone wants to know about anything about it, like what all going to cover, how we're going to help you. Okay, one quick updates I can give you guys. So this entire program is divided into 10 modules, sorry, 10 weeks, right? And sorry, yeah, 10 weeks, right? Within 10 weeks, you're going to have 3 modules, right? In the module 1, we have now added AI as well. So every module and everything that you're going to learn about product management, you're going to have a AI flavor in it, right? In a way that so that you can differentiate yourself, I would say AI product manager in the market, and you can do everything that a PM does in much faster way as well, right? And then there'll be a portfolio building, a lot of tools we're going to cover, and then there'll be interview preparation, placement assistance, mock interviews, right? So yeah, and this is about the program. I have shared the link in the chat. You can access that, and I'll take questions, folks. I want everyone to yeah, please write your questions in the chat. I'll then take one question at a time.
Hey, Akhil, can I ask a question?
Sathak, please write in the chat.
Sure.
All right. I think different. Okay, I think someone asked like, what is a curl and how it is different from an endpoint, right? So curl is something which is carrying all the information which is required for you to understand, as in how to initiate that request, right? So curl would have endpoint, curl would have information regarding headers and all, right? Or anything else that you want to define the curl, you'll have it. And with the help of the curl, you don't have to separate, additional, I would say these requests. Curl, I think, is specially designed for engineers so that they can send these requests directly from the command line, right? Or sorry, I would say terminals that are out there, right? And curl directly also helps you test endpoints, and you can also specify methods. You can pass headers. I think you can also pass data and authentication. Everything basically you can do. Curl is, I think, you can also conceive it as a raw response that that you'll get from the ecosystem. Endpoint is something which is part of the curl, right? Endpoint is a location, right? So curl is something which will also tell you, okay, from which endpoint it has given you that information, right? All right, cool. Now I'll move to the next question. In your restaurant example, ideally, whatever I order from menu is get only, right? Yes. And if I order out of the menu, but if you order out of the menu, that will be a bad request, right? As in, if restaurant is doing it, it is allowing it, it's still it is a post, right? But they might also turn it as a bad request. If you go, let's say MACD, if you ask them a paneer bhurji, they'll say that, oh no, we don't serve that, right? It's a bad request. All right, and every order as new one. Yes, we are considering every order as a new one, right? You're creating a new request, right? So yeah, yes. Even it from the existing, see, it is from the existing data, right? But your system has to act on it. It has to work on it, right? In an example of Myntra, right? You have all the information in the warehouse, right? But you have to tell your system what to do. And this is a new request that you're trying to make, right? Awesome. All right, next is how to build your own API. Dikshan, this is part of more developer friendly session, as in, there are, I think, simpler ways wherein you can curate and create your functions in the backend, and then kind of create endpoints and define parameters and all for someone to act on it. It's very high level, but anyone who wants to know more about it, we have to definitely do it in a different session, Dikshan. Okay, suppose I click on a reorder section in Swiggy, then place an order. Will they be get or put? Okay, so first there'll be a get, because you're going to take out information from your previous orders, right? And then it is going to be put wherein, so then it is going to be post, because you're going to create a new order, right? But the items are similar, but you're going to again place it, right? You're going to tell that kind of a restaurant as in you want to create a new order, right? All right, now okay folks, it will be Priyangi is asking another question. Suppose I click in, I think, yeah, this is something covered. Gemini API curl that we use was being used to request or fetch data. Was it a post call then? Yes, it is a post call, right? Because you're asking LLM to basically act on it, right? That information is already not available in the DB. When you send that information, I think it was a post method only. No? Let me share my screen again. Yeah, it was a post method. I'll share my screen again. Just give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, I'm here. Okay. In fact, I think if you give it a different method, it might not work. Let's say, okay, instead of product space, right? Let us ask it to, hey, can you define curl in 2 lines, right? Let me ask it this. Let's say what it does. All right. Post is something we are asking it to act on it, right? It's something that information it doesn't already have. Okay. Curl measure the tendency of, okay, I have to in APIs, I have to define it. Okay. Yeah, that's what hallucination happens. Like if you don't give a good prompt, then okay. In API, curls a command line tool which widely used to make HTTP requests. Yeah, you can read it, right? But I hope it is clear. Now, let's say if we change the method, right? If we say that, okay, get means like we're assuming this information is already with Gemini and all, and it should fetch that information. No, it won't act because we don't have that information already. We have to ask it to, create this information and then send it to us, right? This is how it works. I hope that is clear. Yeah, it'll be a little confusing as well, folks, because this is for PMs understanding tech. It takes a little bit of time, but it's quite straightforward. Sometimes it gets a little complex because we have not seen this side of the world, but if we practice enough, this is okay. Unable to work practically on, can you please share the recording of the session? Would be great help for. All right. Parameters, Vedaksha, could you please help on parameters, authorizations, headers, body script? That's going to take Vedaksha a lot of time. See, what I can quickly summarize is for APIs to work on, there are some predefined concepts and you have to basically fill all the required details, then only it is going to act on. Authorization parameters is something which is going to help you specify what actions you want that endpoint to do, right? Just, the way we have done it in limit and offset, right? Authorization is something, we're going to let the system know that you're authorized to do it. Whenever you'll see the API documentation, you'll see a test version there, right? And test versions, authorizations or API tokens would already be there because it's a test mode, right? For production, API tokens and all, they have to create in a real time, right? So when you have the right tokens, then only you can access that information, right? And then headers are about headers are about additional side instructions, right? Wherein you are just letting your server know, as in these are the side instructions. Also keep in mind, right? In a way, in our cat wala request that we have tried, and we are already letting the server know in advance that, hey, I'm going to send the request in JSON format, right? And this is the API token as well. Basically, you can also place. Okay, could you please share us the PPT? Okay, the body is something where you define, whenever you want to create, I would say, whenever you want to create a user, right? So you have to share the user data as well, right? And so for that data information has to be passed in part of the body as well, right? Awesome. All right. Cool. Okay, now PPTs, Priyangi, we'll see if we can share it. It's more of an internal product. All right. Now, all right. I hope all the questions are cleared, folks. I think we have already way past the time by 15 minutes. It's whitelisting API. Yes, Shiva, because you have to let the system know that, okay, if the requests are coming from this IP address, then only accept it. It's kind of a part of the authentication, not authorization, I would say. Yeah, or your authentication. Sorry, authenticating that host or a client from which the request is coming, right? Awesome. Thank you, folks. I think I'm dropping my number in the chat if anyone wants to, kind of. Talk to me about the PM fellowship program or any other challenges that you're facing while transitioning into product management, right? Please do reach out to me, and anyone who wants to know about the program or anything, please do ping us. Like we'll be happy to help, right? Thank you, folks. Thanks, Pranav. We'll be happy to chat as well. Hope this session made sense, folks. In your respective mails, we're going to send a feedback form. So everyone who's filling the feedback form will be sharing the certificate to everyone that you have completed the masterclass on API fundamentals, right? Awesome. Thank you, folks, and I hope you had good learning sessions. Yeah, good day, good weekends. And yes, whoever are the product managers, please do join the demo day for AI for product management program, wherein you will see how our cohort members are able to build end-to-end products using AI ecosystem, using agentic AI and all, right? Awesome. Thank you, folks. Thank you. We'll share the feedback form. Please do leave the feedback there. Thank you, everyone.